Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are watching this video tonight. Sid Thompson here again tonight with another edition of Hockey Talk with a former player. This gentleman played his high school hockey at Roseau Ram, played 3 straight years, was a all-tournament team member of 68 and 69 after graduating from Roseau, moved on to UND. I will say the Sioux because they were the Sioux back then, University of North Dakota Fighting Sioux. 69 through 73, 4 years there, amazing, amassing, I believe it was like 140 some points, and not a bad career there. The senior year he was a captain, I believe. Drafted after that to the NHL by the Detroit Red Wings, fifth round, I believe, number 58 or 85. Correct me if I'm wrong. We'll talk about that. Played with the Red Wings a little bit, then was over in London, which I'm wondering how that went. I want to hear about that story. Playing for the London Lions, which was part of the Red Wings, and then in a trade was traded over to the Boston Bruins, where he played with some greats at Boston, which I'm wondering how it was to play for Don Cherry during that era, but the big bad Bruins back in the day, and then finishing up in the minors with the AHL with the Rochester Americans. Did play a year with the United States in the World Championships in the B side, and then of course after playing as pro, moved back, did a little refereeing, and finished up playing a little with the Roseau Leafs. I'm very honored to bring on from Roseau, Earl Anderson. Earl, how you doing,
Hey,
sir?
good. Hi, Sid. How you doing?
Outstanding. I'm doing a lot better now. Hopefully, I didn't miss anything. I butchered the intro, but lots to talk about there. I mean, quite a storied history there. I mean, played a lot, and the way I always like to start, Earl, is that when I'm talking about hockey, I like to say where it all started playing youth, and your youth years in Roseau, and then moving up playing for Oscar Almquist, the legendary Oscar Almquist. Can we talk a little bit about that? How it was growing up in Roseau and then playing high school
No,
and playing in the state
yeah,
tournament?
no problem. I grew up, of course, in Roseau, born and raised. I lived about a block from the rink. I lived right across the street from the Catholic Church, which is right next to the rink. So, needless to say, I spent a lot of time at the arena when I was a young kid. They had the old outdoor rink besides the memorial, and we were there every night, every minute we could get on the ice, and waited till the last second till ready to go home. And Elbin Rosine was the old ice keeper. He had to get the ice scraped at night. Well, we had to bargain with him for ice time. He'd say, it's time to clean the ice. We'd say, how much do we get? He'd say, 15 minutes. We'd say, no, half an hour. 15 minutes. We'd say, no, half an hour. He'd go, 20 minutes. We'd say, okay. So he'd give us 20 minutes of open hockey. Otherwise, we wouldn't scrape the ice for him. So that was kind of my beginning. So I got a lot of skating in every night, every minute I could, basically. So it's probably where I got my start.
Well, Earl, would Rosine be my version of Tilford Husker then, working at the rink then?
Yeah, I
Every-
would guess so. Yeah, Elvin and his wife ran the concession stand forever. When I was young, I always helped scrape the ice. Back in the old days, there was no Zamboni, so they had volunteer sweepers for the high school games. And then I remember I would have the shovel, and then I'd take the excess back to the shovel. They'd scrape it off the ice. But Elvin and his wife always had hot chocolate and a hot dog for us after the game, it seemed like.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I love those Roseau, one of the best concession stands, in my opinion, of
Oh,
all rinks
no
in
doubt.
Minnesota by far, no matter who's running it. So playing youth there, did you going up through the youth level in Roseau? Did you ever play any state tournaments in youth? Because I remember when I interviewed
Yeah,
Don
yeah,
Ross, talked about he played in the first bantam. So
our youth level when I played didn't start till we had like a sixth grade team, but we didn't start any organized hockey till bantams. So I didn't play any organized hockey till bantams, and we won the first year I played bantams. We won the state tournament. And the second year I played bantams, we lost the first game 1-0 or something. We should have probably won that too, but we did win the first tournament. So I just played 2 years of bantams. That was my really only youth hockey to speak of, other than Saturday morning league and Thursday night league and whatever that we had
sure.
back in those days.
I love the old Saturday morning league hockey and the Thursday night league. That's
Yeah,
a good memories there too. Wearing the old KWB or Ben Franklin, whatever
yeah.
jersey I wore
Go
back in the
down to
day.
the
So
Times region and get a quarter or whatever. You could go get a pop and a sweet roll next door at the cafe or something.
there you go.
Yeah.
So moving on to high school, then you were fortunate enough to play in a couple state tournaments. Didn't win it all, but you did. I believe the one year won consolation was in '68.
Yeah.
I think consolation.
Well, I
Um,
played all,
and you're
yeah. I
all
played all
tournament.
3 years, and I went to state tournament all 3 years. We never, I can't even remember now. I'd have to go back and look, but we did win consolation one year. The first year we down, I think we lost our first game, something, and then my senior year, of course, we lost to Warroad, which was a heartbreaker in the
Yeah.
semifinals, and they went on, of course, to get to runner up in the state. But we played Warroad that year. I think we played them 5 times, and we played, well, we split home, and then we beat them in the regionals. And they beat us in the States, so we had the same amount of wins, the same amount of losses, the exact same number of goals against, the exact same number of goals for. We were really close, so it was a battle.
Earl, can you talk about that? You said when you played, that was the what they call that, the back door. You had to come back because Rose
That's
and
the
Warroad.
that's the
Yeah,
old
how'd that
back
work?
door, yeah. I don't know that World ever made it to the Region 8 through the front door. They made it through the back door, which is the runner-ups of Region 7 and Region 8 at that time. They used to have I think it was Region 3 that didn't have any hockey teams or something, so they split it. They used to do it every year. I think they'd split, at one time they split one time both teams from Region 8, and then I could be wrong on that. Then next year both teams from Region 7 would go. But when I was playing, they had the two teams that lost the finals play off for that Region 3. So we beat Warroad in the regional final that year, and they went down and beat somebody on the range and got in to the tournament that way. And of course, they got into our bracket in the state tournament.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Kind of
but
bad,
hey,
yeah.
it is what it is. So yeah, just looking back, vintage Minnesota hockey, by the way, is wonderful. If you ever want to go back and bring up some old memories, that's where I get a lot of this. Looking at '67 there, that year you guys made it. Well, you had that tough loss. It was a 7-6 score to North St. Paul. Looks like in the
Yeah,
first game. That's where
yeah,
you lost to in that one.
yeah.
But you ended up
Yeah.
coming back to consolation championship there. So kudos to you on that. And I look at those teams and I look at some of the players, the names that you played against and with, in the high school. Coleraine, Mike Antonovich. Um, you had Mike Baumgartner on your team as well for Roseau. Bruce Falk, all tournament in that year. But also, 68, 69, yourself, Mike Lumbum. Um, Amazing. Some of the players that you played against. Sarner, you mentioned Craig Sarner. I think
Rick
even
Sarner.
Brad Butel? Brad Butel, I
Brad
believe. He's
Buteau, yeah, Brad Buteau. I didn't remember playing against him. Well, I played against him in college, I believe. But Dean Talifas, I know he went on and played a lot of years of pro. He played down in, I forget where it was, but he ended up in Wisconsin going to college. Dean Blaze, of course, I played against
oh yeah.
Blazer in high school all 3 years, and then played against him 4 years in college. Every time we lined up, it was like, "How you doing, Dean?" It was kind of, "How's it going today?" kind of deal. Yeah. So he was running probably the guy that I ran into most of anybody.
It's pretty crazy when I look at the who's who of hockey during that era
Oh,
when you played. I mean, just look at the state tournament rosters. I'm
oh
like,
yeah,
wow, it's amazing. And when I skim through, let's take, like I said, all tournament team in '67. I mentioned Antonovich. I mentioned Bruce Falk from Roseau. You have um,
yeah,
Peltier name for North St. Paul, then Craig Sarner, and you go to the next year, '68. You were all tournament in '68 and '69.
yeah,
I think you led all scorers from goal scoring, but then Mike Antonovich led all tournament scoring that year. You had 6 goals and you had 9 points, 3 goals
yeah,
and six
yeah,
assists. So,
yeah,
but just some amazing rosters and stories that when you look at that, and I just cannot believe, um, a lot of second name tradition names coming through. They had Sault St. Paul and Mullins View back in the day when they made a run. They haven't been there in
yeah,
forever and a day, but back then they were pretty good. But that was the era of the range with Coleraine, when they had
yeah.
Antone and that group.
International
So,
Falls before that. Yeah. There was a lot of
yep,
good players in high school hockey at that time, but and a lot of us went on to play college, but not a lot went on to play pro at that time. It just wasn't in the books, I guess. There wasn't a lot of Americans in there at that time. With the lesser teams and whatever. Not a lot of Americans played. I got drafted, but I guess I had no idea that I'd probably ever play professional hockey. I thought,
well, we're jumping ahead, but I will throw this up when you say that. So just for the sake, so you can see a picture of yourself and see that drafted. Yeah. Let's see if this shows up. Let's see. Come on, right there. Look at that handsome devil.
yeah,
You see that? round 5, number
Good
58. We're
looking guy.
getting a little bit ahead of ourselves because we're
Look
still
at the
talking
hair.
high school, but look at that hair. Yeah,
Sideburns.
by God. So, but going back playing for Roseau again, and some of the battles you had. Did you guys play Coleraine back in that? Because I don't know the high school schedule. I don't have the old
No,
schedules back.
we didn't play I don't remember playing Coleraine in high school. We played Grand Rapids all the time. We played International
Okay,
Falls, but that was mostly it. I don't think we played on it. I could be wrong, but I don't remember playing Coleraine in high school.
okay. I was just curious looking at some of those rosters, and then you get the state tournament, you look at all these Dyna rosters,
Yeah,
the infamous green and white, the evil green and white. I mean, we were green and white,
yeah.
but you look at their green and white, and like, oh, doggone it. But looking at some of the names, they had the Bill Nyrock back in the rest and
Bill
soul. So I
Nyrock, a
think
great guy.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
Bobby Krieger was a
Yeah, the
absolute
Krieger name.
lightning
I
on
think I maybe
skates.
even skated with him.
Oh,
Over in Edina, that Krieger.
he could skate
But
like crazy. Yeah, they had some really good players down there.
just pretty amazing. And, the International Falls, the legendary Larry Ross was their head coach, and there's Dean, of
Yeah,
course. I'm just looking at some of the names, and then the
he was
names
still
of your
coaching when
team.
I graduated. Believe it or not, he was coaching the senior year. My senior year, he was still coaching. I think that might have been his last year.
Well, that's when hockey's in your blood. Hockey's in your blood, right?
Oh yeah,
So, and then in '69, you played in that tournament, and then you guys got beat by Ward. You mentioned 3-2. I see that that's a tough loss, but an even tougher loss for Warroad when Henry got hurt, and
yeah.
they got
That
beat
was
5-4 in overtime. Can you talk about the experiences playing against, when you played against Henry or with Henry,
well.
and that?
Henry's the same age as I am, of course. So we grew up together. I remember Henry from when we were 6 or 7 years old. We'd go to World to play baseball or whatever. And it was always against Henry, and for 18 years or whatever, I played baseball, football, hockey against Henry the whole time, and he was something else, no doubt.
Yeah, that's sad to say he's gone. He always treated me well when I was over there because he was playing hockey. Always say hi to me and be a nice guy. But
He had time
a
for
lot of,
everybody. It seemed like he was very social, very, yeah.
and that's the one thing too. Where I was going to ask you about your memories of the. It may not be as intense now, but when you play World, I mean, what was it like when you guys played head to head? And obviously, you had to be able to go through section. They don't do it now, but that
Yeah,
intensity. But yet, you're still friends. Like you say, talk about Henry. I know guys I played against, and I'm friends with them still
yeah.
to this day. But just that rivalry, I think it's the best in high school
I,
hockey still.
I think it is, and I have to say that we weren't good friends in high school. I wasn't good friends with any of those guys. Alan Hank
Yeah, yeah.
Slavin, Henry Bushy, Pat O'Donnell, Frank Cron, some of those guys that we just hated each other. Oh, I shouldn't say hated, but I
Well,
guess
no. I
just
mean, yeah,
we
it's just
wanted to beat them so bad, but not until after high school when I got to know the guys better. We played ball together and played beer ball together and hung
oh yeah.
around together and turned into some of my best friends. But it was all business in high school. I remember that.
Yeah. I got to ask you. You mentioned Frank Kronz. Was he a silver-haired fox when he was in high school too?
Yeah, I don't think he had the silver hair, but he was kind of a fox. Yeah, yeah. He moved over from Oro and played with the Leafs there for quite a few years. He was a lot of
Yeah.
fun. He played with Mike and I quite a few years together. Crown was a good
Yeah, I mean,
guy, good
we'll,
guy in our team.
we'll talk a little bit about that at the tail end there. With the Leafs and refereeing and stuff too. So I mentioned the high school tournament, the all tournament team. I will throw up. I got to throw up this all tournament team and a couple of these pictures so you can just see. Look at that one. I think that one there is that's the '68 team. Look at that handsome devil in the middle on the page to the left there with those glasses.
With those glasses hanging out, glasses were big. Yeah,
Yeah, well,
I
you and
never.
Anton, you wore them pretty well there. Mike Antonovich yourself, and then Mike Lumbum,
Yeah,
the glasses. Yeah, I
we
think I
all
see
had
you guys
glasses.
wore it pretty well. Wore it pretty
Yeah,
well.
I never got contacts till I went to UND. First time I ever had contact lenses.
Well,
I was just
that lends me to the next the next moving from high school to college. How
right.
did you end up at UND? I mean, was it something? Obviously, there's that
Well,
feed. There's Roseau guys going there and War people going to UND. Was it
yeah.
always North Dakota?
I always kind of wanted to go to North Dakota. Growing up, I loved going to North Dakota. I remember as a youngster, we used to go down, and Donnie Ross probably won't like that. I said, but we used to go down, and I remember watching Donnie Ross playing, and a guy by the name of Bob Lillo. I'm sure that rings a bell in your head. He
Yes, it
was from
does. Yes, it
Roseau,
does.
good his brother was a good friend of mine, and Bob was a good friend of mine, and I used to just love going down there to watch him play. He could skate 100 miles an hour. And I just thought that's the best thing in the world. To play at UND would be just an absolute dream. But it never really transpired till probably, I think it was almost in the summer after my senior year. I'd had a few recruitment things and whatever, and not really that many offers. And then Rube made me an offer in, I think it had to be, I don't know, it wasn't in July or June or July or something. Or maybe it was right before school was out or something like that. So he gave me like a half scholarship, and I jumped at it anyway. But yeah. So after that, I went that summer. Then I went to the cities, and I played in my uncle Kenny Austin. I don't know if you're familiar with that name or not.
Well, I know the name.
Yeah.
Yep.
He talked me into coming down to Owatonna and living with him for the summer and playing hockey in the summer league in the cities. And I think that was probably the best thing that I ever did. I went down and played against all these guys that, well, not all, but a lot of these guys that I played with and are against in the summer. All the guys from Medina and all these other places played in that summer league, which was really a pretty good league. And I guess I attribute that to my good start at UND, because I had a real excellent first year at UND. For a rookie, I walked in. That was the first year freshmen could play. Before that, you had to play 1 year of JV.
I see that first year, 69-70, 30 games played, 17 goals and 7 assists for 24 points.
First year was my best year goal scoring, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I beg to differ, because I look here with yeah. When I look at 71-72 in 36 games, you had 23 and 22 for a total of 45 points.
Okay.
So you did have your senior year, you were the captain, and it was 36 games, 17 and 30. So not bad. 24, 29, 45, and 47 points. So each year you got progressively better as far as the point tally.
It was good, and at that time we never really had a power play either. And Rube never had a power play per se. It was the first slide, next slide up kind of deal. So, it could have been a lot better, I think, had we had the time that these guys are getting on power plays and stuff now. But it was good.
I looked at the rosters, kind of looking through the years, and at one point I thought there was 4 or 5 Roseau guys in the 4 world players too. I think Alan was on there, Hank Slavin, but I thought I saw Mike Baumgartner, Mike Lumbum. You played Mike there too?
Yeah, Mike Baumgartner was there when I got there. Jim Nelson, Nape was a goalie there.
Yep.
Mike Lumbum and Dave Ellis was playing. He never played a lot of varsity, but he played, and Mike Lumbum was there. He played. And who else did we have? And then after that, for a while, we had Kent Langley was down there. Gary Ross was there for a year, so they didn't last. Gary went to Bemidji, of course, and Kent, I think, played a year or two and didn't play anymore or whatever. But yeah, we had a lot of guys.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
We had Hank Slavin and Morrow.
Your goaltender, Tim Delmore as well.
Tim Delmore was there. I forgot about Timmy Delmore was our goalie. That when he was a freshman or sophomore, I think. Yeah.
Pretty amazing, that northern connection to the UND, and I think a lot of that could be attributed to going back to Cal Marvin over there, the evil neighbor Warroad, when he helped start that program.
Cal was a pretty good UND guy. He had a lot of say over there too. I don't know if he got some of us Roseau guys in there or not, but he was definitely a UND contributor.
So I guess you pretty much answered it. But was there any question, anybody else that you'd consider besides UND?
No, not really. I still hold a grudge for the University of Minnesota, but other than that, I guess I kind of felt like I would have gone to the University of Minnesota, but they didn't think I had the ability to play at that level, apparently. So they didn't.
Well, I think you showed them differently based upon the stats I saw.
I think I showed them that I could play in that league anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty damn good stats based on that.
I kind of laughed at that. That was back before your day, but they had some recruiters then by the name of Bob Lyons, and it was a T-lander, I think, or something at that time. They were
T-lander. Okay.
They were the big know-it-alls in hockey at that time for the University of Minnesota, and they told our coach that they didn't think I could play at that level. So, well, that's probably why sometimes it's scholarships.
Nothing wrong with a little bit of what for, giving you a what for when you stick it to the Gophers, right?
There you go.
But if I'm talking to a Gopher, of course, I'm going to say that about the former Sioux. Oh, Fighting Hawks now. Excuse me, got to be politically correct.
We don't talk about that.
Yeah, I know Don Ross said that too. It's always a Sioux in my book. I mean, because when you played, I'm referring to a team that was called that when you played. So
we were
we're not talking about. Yeah, we're not talking about the now. So. After that, then I threw up that picture. Like I said, jumping ahead a little bit. Jumping ahead. I threw up the draft pick. You were drafted in the this round here. Come on, get up there.
Yeah.
The fifth round, 58 overall. So how did you find out about that? I mean, I listened. Back they didn't have the pomp and circumstance that they have now.
Yeah.
I was listening to
I wasn't
Knuckle.
sitting
I
in the
love listening
living
to Chris.
room. Yeah, I wasn't sitting in the living room with a bunch of people watching the draft. But
Yeah, no, I don't.
I
I
think I
could get a
got a
phone call like Chris
call.
Knuckles Nyland, listen to his podcast. He's, I was sitting probably at home. I got a call and I thought, yeah, he was like the next to last guy was
Yeah.
drafted or whatever. But so you got the phone call. You didn't think it was a joke? I mean, because it wasn't somebody pulling your leg when you got
No,
that
I
phone
didn't know.
call.
Like I said, I didn't have any real expectations. I knew I'd been drafted or they talked. In fact, I talked to this guy from Chicago for 3 years at North Dakota, the scout that was every weekend. He was talking to me and whatever. So I was pretty sure if I was going to get drafted, it would have been by Chicago. But I got drafted by Detroit anyway, unless Chicago was holding on for a later, pick or something. But yeah, so I got called and they offered me a contract and away I
I
went.
like that. So before that though, there was the World Championships. So we were in the B side. You played in that. Can you talk a little about that? Because that was just
I
before.
played with the U.S. team one year. I was in the B. They were in the B division that time. That was after college was over, kind of deal. We just put together a team. I think I actually played 2 years with it, but I don't. And they were both off Olympic years. 73 would
I'm
have
looking
been
at
my.
yeah,
The next year would have been
the
if I had not
73.
gone pro, I could have probably played Olympics or would have tried out for the Olympic team that next year. I'm sure. 74.
I'm looking at that roster right now, Earl, and I see some of these names. Damn good roster. You got Doug Palisari,
Oh yeah,
um, yourself, Dean Talifas, Steve Surdich,
Steve
Blaze,
Sturridge,
Hank Slavin, Gary Sargent. Can't forget about Gary. He was a he
Sarge.
was a
Yeah,
he was a wagon there. Charlie Brown. He played in the Olympics. I played
Charlie
with Charlie
Brown.
in Old Timers League over there in West St. Paul with Denny Leverty. Charlie
Yeah,
could
Danny
still
Leverty.
skate too.
Charlie was Charlie was, I shouldn't say he was old at that time, but Charlie was probably 4 or 5 years at least older than I am. So he was getting a little bit of a veteran on the U.S. team at that point, yeah.
He could
Yeah, we
still
had a good
play. And
team.
then
Bob Johnson was the
your
coach.
netminder was Blaine Comstock.
One
So
of the net miners was
um,
Blaine Comstock, yeah.
so you had the Roseau connection. So not a bad squad. So where was that played? The World Championship day. Where did you guys play those? I
We
didn't.
played in Graz, Austria the year we went to that
Austria.
time. Yeah. And I think
Oh,
the
that's good.
year before that we might have, I don't know, it was some kind of a U.S. thing. It wasn't abroad. I know that. We didn't do very well in it anyway, I remember. But that was in Graz, Austria. It was a great trip. We had a lot of fun, and we didn't win
Looks
it,
like
of
you had a
course.
pretty darn good 7 games you played, 8-4 for a total of 12 points. Not bad, Earl.
Yeah, I don't
You
remember
kept.
that. Yeah, you could have told
Well,
me
I
that.
got
I
stats
would have
don't
not
lie
known.
right here. I
Yeah,
got it right in front of me. I do
yeah,
my due diligence as
I
best
would
I
not
can.
known that. But yeah, no, it went good. Yeah.
So here's my next. Before we jump about the NHL, so what the heck happened with? Okay, so the Red Wings. There's this team here. I got to throw this up because people wonder who the heck are these guys. This logo right here. Come
Yeah,
on.
I got it up
The
here.
London Lions in the England League, or playing in London. How did that come about?
Well, it started out. I don't really know how it got going, but Bruce Norris was the guy's name. Owned the Detroit Red Wings. He was a big shipping magnate magnate, I guess you call him, on the Great Lakes or whatever. And his dream was to start a professional league in Europe. He wanted to have
Okay.
London to have a team. He wanted Russia to have a team, of course. Germany, Sweden, you know, they wanted all these teams, and he wanted to start a league. So he wanted to send a team over there to compete with all these teams and promote that so-called league that he wanted to start. And it didn't work, obviously, but we had a really good time. We played all the good teams from Russia. We played Dynamo and all their top club teams. We played in tournaments all over Europe and played different
Yeah.
teams. Some were not so good, some were really good.
Oh, sure.
We played
But you were
in,
able to get that international
yeah.
experience. I think I got a picture
Oh,
here. Here's
yeah,
does that look familiar? That's Salzburger goalie
that's me.
Gerd
Yeah.
Nowak and center Jean-Pierre Mallet trying to prevent Earl Anderson from scoring. Look at that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. That
dug
was,
deep for that one there.
jeez, you got more information than I have, I think. Yeah.
Okay, I believe this is a picture of your Wings team, but this is the London guys that went over to London. Is that correct?
That's the
Is that
London. Yeah, that's the London Lion team there. Yeah.
Who's next? Is that Polonich? Is that no? I'm trying to think some of these names here. I don't have the roster, but there was a
Yeah,
few of
like
those guys that.
let's see what guys we know. One guy's from Grand Forks, Dennis Johnson. He played at UND with me. He's a good guy.
Okay, I don't.
Mike Polonich, he played with Detroit for quite a while. The guy in the middle, the little guy with a big mustache, Rene Drolet. He was a
Relay.
veteran. He was a lifer in the American League. Absolutely a great center. I played with him when I was in the minors. Absolutely tore it apart, but they like to put the young guys with them, so they took me off that team, or took me off that line in the minor. But over there, they played together. We had a kind of a Canadian combination. They had some of their top stars. The guy next to him was McCann was his name. He played 15 years probably in the American League. They had a lot of guys that played a lot of years, And the guy that I played with, ended up playing with, was from Sweden. His name was Ulf Sterner.
I was just going to bring up his name because you were second in scoring. He had 115 points.
He had more points than I did. He was an absolute.
You had
magician.
110. 110 though. He won the scoring title for the London Lions only by 5 points.
Yeah,
so
we were good together. He was. I mean, I would. It was one of those go to the net and the puck would be there kind of deal. He was smart and cagey, and he was probably 10 years older than me, I think, at that time even. But he was really, really a good center, and it went really well. Yeah, and like I said, some of the games were easy. I mean, you don't get
you're gonna have a few of those
playing against AHL teams or something, but there was some games when you get 3-4 goals or whatever.
How was the lifestyle over there though, playing in London and then moving around in Europe, playing some matches? I mean, what was that experience like as a young man?
Well, it was really different. I was single, of course, and young, but yeah, we had a lot of fun. We did a lot of traveling. We spent the first, and I forget now, but we spent the first, I think the season is about 6 months long, probably, or 7 months, where they start in October. I think we spent the first 2 months or something, and we never left London. All the teams came to London, and we had all home games. We played every home game for 2 months, and then we went on the road for 3 months. Steady. I never lived out of a suitcase for 3 months on the bus and whatever for 3 months. We went all over Europe. I think I was in 14 different countries, and we played. I don't know how many games we played. I know you'd probably have it on it, but we must have played 80 games, I'm sure, or better. We played everybody from Sweden to Finland to Norwegians to Luxembourg to France to Austria to Germany. It was fun. Got to see a lot of country.
Quite experience. Yeah, quite an
we got to
experience.
be a pretty close group. We lived in a hotel the whole time, and everybody gets pretty close.
Well, I had to bring that up because I just was amazed by looking at that. You said
it was the first and last anything happened. Nothing apparently came out of it, or nobody was interested in producing or doing any more for that league. But he spent a lot of money to make that happen. I mean, he sent 21 of us over there. The guys are all pros, so it's not like an amateur team. They were all being paid and everything else too. So they had to dig pretty deep in the system because they still have a team in the American League.
They have a pretty good league over there now, and I mean, Europe's got all sorts of leagues. The Britain League, and they really like their imports, from my understanding, in Great Britain. But a guy can make a pretty good living, from my understanding, playing in Europe.
A lot of guys do very well. They have fun, and they do make pretty good money. I get treated really well. I never had a chance to do it. I guess I don't know if I would have at the time. When I got done, I was pushing 30 by that time. So it's at that time getting pretty old for a hockey player.
So after that, then I mentioned them. So here's the picture. You had a young man there wearing a red jersey. That's where you started with. That was part of the Wings, but I had to throw that up there.
Red Wings, yeah.
So I'm looking at the stats there from the Red Wings. So you played 45 games with them in 74, 75.
Yep.
7 and 3. So you had 10 points.
That up the other day too. I was thinking 40 some games, yeah. And I think I had like 7 goals and something in 40 games.
Yeah, it was 10 points.
I was struggling a little bit, but I was playing pretty regular. I was playing with my center is actually Red Berenson.
I was just about to say, looking at the roster of that squad, because in that era that you played in, Earl, I mean, you played 100 games in NHL, and that's nothing to sniff at by any means.
Right.
Anybody just like to play one game in the NHL, you played 100. Yeah. If I look at that roster, you got Red Berenson was on there. On this, I'm talking about the Detroit team. Jimmy Rutherford was one of the goalies.
Mickey Redmond. Danny Grant
Uh,
played
I,
at Minnesota for a while. Geez, I can't even.
but the one name that really stands out, you got to play with Hall of Famer Marcel Dion when it was on that squad.
Who?
121 points score.
Oh,
Marcel
Del
Dion, it
Vecchio.
says.
Oh yeah,
No,
and Del
Marcel
Vecchio was
Dion.
on. Yeah, Marcel Dion was pretty young at that time. Yeah, he was. Well, he was a couple of years older than me, I guess. But yeah, he was kind of. But we still had Del Vecchio. he was a classic, and he
I
was a
could
pretty.
about imagine some of the stories you have with that squad. But I'm going to move on to the next squad. But first of all, let me see if I can do something here. I'm gonna try something. Or don't bear with me for a second here.
Okay.
Let me see if I can share my screen. But I saw something here that kind of caught my eye, and hopefully it works. I've done it before. I'm going to present and share the camera here because I want to take and show you something. Here we go. And this, I think you said, led to you.
In to get the puck. It's Detroit. Anderson hits. Savard with it. And an elbow is called here. And we got Forbes jamming with Anderson. And everybody go. O'Reilly's in there. Well, let's see how Newell calls this one and a big jam. Well, there's really going out.
Look at that guy flinging, and then he gets taken down, and
really whacking at it. And that
So I had to bring that up and show that because what that was a little feistiness in you there, Earl. I don't remember you doing much of that when I watched you play in your senior days when you're playing with the Leafs or that. But
I think
when
I
I'm hearing
missed the
about
boat.
you
I
playing college,
probably missed the boat. I should have probably kept a little more of that up, but I've probably still been playing. No,
but
I was telling you earlier. I said that guy by the name of Dave Forbes, which people will recognize, but
yeah,
it was just a mix-up, and I wasn't even involved in the mix-up. He skated by and punched me right between the eyes. Sucker punched me, so that's what started the whole brawl. But it was fun.
And then you ended up being traded over
I
to
got traded
him,
not too long after that. Yeah. Then I
to the
ended up
Boston,
teammates with him.
the big bad Bruins back in the day. During the heyday, kind of that was an
It was an unbelievable.
era where things were a little bit different back then, weren't they, Earl?
Holy cow! You might want to say it. I stepped into a different generation there. I mean, that was unbelievable. The team that I went to play with, it was. I mean, it
Well, I'm
was
going to pull
filled
up
with.
the roster of that squad, some of those squads, because you finished your career there, but you didn't have a bad. Look at the years there. You played in 76, 77. Shoot, you had about half a point in 40 games, 10 goals,
Yeah.
11 assists, and 21 points.
I
That's
got
not too
called
bad.
up halfway through the year that year. I was sent down to start the year, and I got called up halfway through the year, and I think I had over. I was on a 20 goal pace both years there. I thought that I would have been anyway, at least at the pace I was going. But I didn't get to. Well, I played the half year, and then I got hurt the next year, the fifth game into the season. I was playing regular then, and hoping to have kind of my breakout year, I guess. But then I got hurt and missed the whole rest of the season. So that was kind of the downer.
I'm going to just pull up a couple of those that year, that 76, 77 year. I mean, first of all, your coach. Just being able to say you were played, your coach was with Don Cherry, right? The famous Don Cherry with the flat, Hockey Night in Canada grapes. I mean, give me a Don Cherry. Give me a grape story.
Cherry, yeah.
Come on, give me a grape story. Tell me one that everybody, when we replay this and I put it up for people to listen to this. That's a great story. What can you tell us about?
He was just a piece of work. I don't know. Sometimes you thought he was a complete fool, and sometimes you thought he was a complete genius. But he did some things I can't think of anything right off the top of my head. But he'd made a lot of statements and a lot of things that were just kind of absurd or whatever. You just kind of shake your head. But he knew his stuff. He was I don't know if he's the greatest coach in the world. I know he was a good players coach. He stuck by his players. He didn't. He backed his players usually. He stood up against the management and stuff when he had to, and so from that standpoint, he was pretty well liked. I guess I didn't like him at the end because he didn't play me at the end. But
that's usually how it goes, right?
yeah.
But I look at some of those teams. I'm just pulling up the 76, 77 roster. Just the fact that, like I say, to be able to play 100 games, much less playing one game in the NHL, and some of the guys you played with, you're talking Hall of Famers and players that were near Hall of Famers. I look at that 76 team, Jean Ruttel, you had Peter McNabb, you had Brad Park, Terry O'Reilly, Cashman, and then, of course, Chief with Busick, he was a Hall of Famer. Middleton, he said, came over. And then you got the tough guy, of course, Stan Jonathan. John Wensick.
Yeah, Wensick.
You hit some characters there. I can about imagine the stories of those guys. You have with those guys.
Oh yeah.
The toughness, and then of course your goaltender was Cheevers and Gilbert. Not a bad tandem there.
Gilbert. Oh, they had a lot. Phil Esposito. Wayne Cashman. Bobby Orr.
So
just
to think about that, they're doing well again. They're in the playoffs. Boston's got a tradition.
Yeah.
So to say you wore that, you were two original 6 teams. You started out with the Wings. You go over to Boston.
Yeah. Then
that's that. I got to give you, hey, one of these pats on the back. You got to say that. I played in the NHL, and not only did I play in the NHL, I played on the team that you may have not have won the cup. You got beat what? Well,
we went to the final. Yeah, we went to the final 2 years.
But that was during the old heyday.
First year I was hurt, but we went to the finals that year, and we lost to Montreal in 4 games, of course. And then the next year I was healthy, but I didn't get to play, and we lost in 4 games too. Montreal was unbelievable that year.
They were a wagon back then. Looking at the roster that they had, and I grew up obviously Hockey Night in Canada as a young kid. They're still my team today. I mean, I got the Habs behind me there. I got my Sioux jersey up there on the shoulder.
They were unbelievable. They were hard to beat.
Yeah, looking back in your days in the NHL, what was the experience you can say, okay, wow, this is something pretty special? I remember this, like your first goal, or maybe that little scrap you had with Forbes, or
stuff like that sticks out. I can't remember my first goal. That's pretty bad. But I think the thing that sticks out to me the most, I think, in the whole time I was there, was the first year I was there, was watching Bobby Orr. He played when I got traded, he played the rest of that year. And then after that, he didn't get to play. He was hurt and he didn't play much. But he played the rest of that year. Pretty much, I think he played the whole rest of that year when I got traded. Unbelievable. I mean, you just sit on the bench and you look at the guy next to you and you go, did you just see what he did? Kind of like, well, the kids are doing it now. I mean, a lot of these young kids are making these moves. People didn't do that back in the old days. It was pretty much straightforward hockey. Put your shoulder down and go to the net, and that's between the legs. But he did stuff like that. And he just could control the game. He carried the puck. If you wanted the game to speed up, you could speed the game up. If you wanted to slow down, it seems like he slowed the game down. So he was probably the highlight of my whole, anything that I did there. And Phil Esposito was unbelievable. I sat next to Phil Esposito in the locker room, dressed next to him, and that was a treat. He was very superstitious, he didn't touch anything he had and whatever. But he was the nicest guy in the world, but he just had a certain way of doing things. And you didn't monkey with it or touch any of his stuff. But, yeah. Well, that was.
You kind of had that hair like Espo too. You kind of had that dark, thick hair. You could look like you could be maybe his cousin or his long lost brother too.
Yeah,
hair back in the day, huh?
We had the flow then. Yeah, that was big. And then of course, no helmets. You didn't have to cover it up with a helmet. So
exactly. Yeah, show that off.
I was a guy that never played without a helmet, to playing a year and a half without a helmet or a mouth guard.
You mentioned Bobby Orr. I mean, there's like players of a lifetime. Obviously Gretzky, but like now, there's so many good defensemen that just so offensive. But Bobby, watching some of the old games, remember what? Unfortunately, the knees went on him. But can you imagine what he would have been like if he was in today's with the technology and surgeries and things that they do? These guys are back so quick.
They wouldn't have had him all cut up, as bad as he was. I'm sure a lot of that would have been orthoscopic or something, and I'm sure it would have been a lot better. But yeah, he really got tore up at the end.
So, the career kind of winds down. I mean, like I said, you're able to play that many games in the NHL. That's an amazing feat. And then you wind down and, end up finishing up, I think, you finish up in the A? Is that where you end up finishing up?
I played the last year at Rochester in the American Hockey League, yeah.
So how was that experience, kind of winding the career down?
It was okay. I mean, it was good hockey. It's very good. I mean, it's right next to the NHL in hockey, but, you aren't in the NHL, so it's kind of a deal. And I kind of had a bad feeling that I wasn't going back to the NHL at that point, because I had a really good first part of the season playing with this guy I told you, and I started out really good, but they just kind of, I could tell that I wasn't in the books anymore. So I kind of just played out that year and had a good time, I guess. But it was good hockey, and Rochester was a good place to play.
I mean, 72 games, 66 points, Earl. 26-40. That's a pretty damn good year.
Yeah.
That's not bad way to end it. So did
No.
you end it? I don't know the whole story, but was injuries or they just hey, it was time. When
Well,
did
I
you
had
know?
the
Like,
injury that I missed that whole year, and then I got back, and then I was in the minors. I told you the first half that the year after my injury, I played in the minors for half a year. Then I went up and had a great second half. So I expected to do and then of course the next year I thought I had my spot. You never have your spot made, but I felt like I was kind of a breakout year for me. And when it didn't work out, then I kind of at that time, I was getting close to 30, and most of the players are coming in at 18, 19, the young guys and stuff. And they definitely were making a move to the youth. I could have played, I think, longer in the American League if I had chosen to, but I'd had enough, I guess.
okay, well,
But I would have played
I mean,
another 10 years in the NHL if they'd have let me, I suppose. Yeah. Or if I
oh
could
yeah,
have.
yeah. I'm just trying to look through that roster there before I move on to the next one. But some of the players that were in that squad with you there in the A. Oh, I can't pronounce that. Rick
Rick Aduno.
Aduano. Yes,
Aduno,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
Aduno.
Very good. Yeah,
He
he was
played.
the leading scorer. 98 points, and you were in there, fourth leading scorer, 66.
Yeah,
So
I
not
was.
bad, not bad. So after that was all said and done, what did It's always we always talk about stuff. What do we do next? What do we do next? All you've known is hockey. You've been playing hockey. So how did you get in there? When you come back home and you say, "Well, I'm going to stick into this game." So let's talk about the refereeing aspect of it. I mean, what brought you into that? How did you get involved with that? Did somebody say,
Oh,
"Hey, we're short on refs. Maybe you want to
I'm
try
not
it?"
really too sure. I think Carson Hedlund was pretty influential in that, and got back and he just wanted to try it, give it a try or whatever. And I started doing youth games and whatever, and I enjoyed it. I really got to enjoy it. I wasn't married at the time yet, so I didn't have kids in the programs or anything else too. So it was one way I could stay involved. I was playing with the Leafs for a few years there after I came back, and I don't know the exact years now, but that kind of dissolved away too, and the reffing seemed to come up, and I really enjoyed reffing. It was really a good experience.
You know, Refereeing, and I've done some officiating with baseball and fast pitch. And I don't know about you, how if you had it or how it was when you refereed, but how were as Dickie Johnson used to call them, the unnecessary evils, meaning the parents? How were they to
Yeah,
you? And did you have
yeah.
any crazies out there?
Well, they're always yelling. Reffing, you're always yelling. You're never right. It's kind of like coaching. You're never right. But
Yeah.
I was fortunate both ways. I'm sure we had a lot of people complaints. I remember getting phone calls the next day, sometimes after a high school game. And some lady called me one time, and I don't. I think I know who it was, but I won't mention any names. Can you honestly think that you had a good game last night? And I, I think Warroad lost. We were in Warroad, and they lost to I don't know, maybe South St. Paul, or somebody that was up there or whatever. And I don't know, it was
Yeah.
Keith and I or Carson and I or somebody. I thought the game went pretty, routinely. She called, it just raked me. So I'm out there. And of course, at that time, I was in business with Dale. So I went on the phone with this lady. I go, smoke. I got to grab the phone. So he grabs the other line. He tries to listen in. Well, the lady on there at the end caught on that there was more than one of us listening in or whatever. So she hung up. But how can you think that you had a good game? It was just horrible. You kind of go,
Well, you
maybe
can't
I'm
do
just,
that as much
maybe I
now
was
because
just,
you just looked up your phone number in the phone book. Most
yeah,
people just go by the cell phone unless you have that, right?
yeah, that time you could look up your number in the phone book, no problem. She got a hold of me without any problem. Yeah, that was
Well, now most people live behind their keyboards and talk about maybe never played the game or refereed the game or
right,
whatever have you.
right.
And that those are the ones that
Well, you're not going to please
I
everybody, you know that. If you're out there,
exactly,
if you're roughing,
exactly.
it's all in your mind.
I got to bring up, you mentioned the Leafs. We talked about refereeing, but can you talk about because times have changed tremendously. There's no longer any, senior men's teams like there was back when you were playing, back when I was a kid
Right,
watching. I remember
right.
they used to have, the national tournament was there. I
Yeah,
loved it. I mean, you had teams from Alaska. You had Blue Spot Bar. You'd have the Coleraine, the Rangers. Obviously the Lawsons, and those were bloodbaths at times for you guys.
yeah.
But playing in that was some damn good hockey. And
They
I know
had
Don
really good
Ross talked
hockey.
about it.
It was probably a little bit better even before I got back. You know, they were right in their prime, you know, back in the day when they had, well, Mike was playing, Lumbum was played through most of that, but they had Falk and they had Larry Skyme and they had a bunch of these guys, and they had some really good teams, and they played in a lot of state tournaments, you know, and somewhere in Roseau, I think, and somewhere. That was before I got back, of course. I played in a couple state tournaments after, you know, with the Leafs, but they were in the cities or something. It wasn't quite like the old times. But yeah, they had some good years in senior hockey. It was really good. But it
Yeah, I
kind of
just don't.
died
You
out
know,
like everything else, I suppose. You know, with
yep.
snowmobiles and this and that and whatever.
Well, the guys didn't want to take, to get up the next morning and go to work after. So some of those were
Exactly.
pretty rough and tumble games.
Oh
Some of
yeah.
those guys took it pretty serious. But I know I played a few no check tournament games, or no check games were worse than a regular senior
Oh
men's
yeah.
game because, it's a lot more stick working
A
kids
lot more
coming back out
hanging
of college
on
or
and
minor.
hooking and crapping.
Yep, exactly. So, and we talked about a lot. We're kind of winding down here. I try to keep it under an hour. But so of all your experiences, and you get married and you have your son, and Bob, he plays for the Rams, and he made the state tournament, and then ended up playing, getting involved with the UND hockey team as well, right?
Yeah.
As a goalie. So
Yeah. He
how
had
does
a
that
great.
make you feel? I mean,
Uh,
you played there. He's
it
there
made me
wearing a
pretty
jersey.
happy. Yeah. I was
I was
pretty
gonna
proud.
say,
He graduated from high school. He didn't know what he wanted to do. He didn't know if he wanted to go to college or what he wanted to do. So we went down and tried out for the Minnesota Wilderness team, and they had
yep,
some good goalies down there. I think they had 4 of the top 5 goalies in the state were trying out for that team that weekend or whatever. And Ryan came out making it. He played really well, and I don't know if they just liked him or whatever, but he ended up making the team, and then. He was actually kind of the backup goalie to start with there, but the main goalie got hurt, missed like 45 games. So Ryan played over half the games that season. So he had a great year at juniors. And then after juniors, he was ready to just go to school or do something. And he actually got a call from St. Cloud. Moscow wanted him to come down there, and he specifically wanted him to be. He said, "I'm not calling you my third goalie, but because anybody that plays good is going to play for this team." He said, "But I kind of like
yep.
a third goalie." And Ryan didn't want to go there for some reason. He just signed up to go to UND, and when he got down to UND, they found out that they needed another one. And Ryan had worked with Carl Gehring, a little bit in the summers and different things. And I think Carl put in a good word, and they asked Ryan to come out and just help out for that year because they were short. They needed a third goalie. So I'll do that. He ended up being there all 4 years, so that was good. He didn't get to
Pretty
play.
cool.
He had a great,
But
great career. They won the national tournament his first year.
but be able to wear that jersey and say, "Hey, my dad played here, and I'm
Yeah,
wearing the same damn thing he
yeah,
did." So
that
I
was
thought that was
fun.
pretty cool to see that. I had to bring that up, and the goalie union, of course, I got to bring up
Oh
that
yeah,
son
goalies
playing
need
goalie. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. You're no
we just
goalie.
get a little we just get a little slower. Um, I kind of wind it down. I try to keep it under, like I said, under an hour or so. But looking back over the years, and I always mention this or ask of people I talk to in interviewing, like I say, it's pretty casual. We just talk hockey, talk life. First of all, any regrets? I always ask about that. Anyone looking back on your career, having played and everything you've done, is there anything you would have done differently, or anything that you say, yeah, or nah?
If I'd have had it to do over again, I probably would have worked a little harder at it. You know what I mean? The way the kids, although I don't know now the way they train so hard now they just about kill
Yeah.
themselves. So I don't know if that's better or not. But back in my day, the training wasn't, wasn't that great. I do a lot of running and that type of thing. I never did lift a lot of weights. Most of my weightlifting came throwing hay bales and whatever during the summer. And
Funny you should say that because I was just going to bring up the picture of Bobby Hall. Remember
oh yeah,
what was it? The hay
yeah,
bales in his arm,
yeah,
his arms.
natural,
But
natural.
these,
No, I
these
never
guys
lifted
now are,
weights. I never got into weightlifting, which I probably should have. And conditioning a little bit more, but just the way it was those days. I guess some people did, more than others. I
I
guess
think,
if I would have if I'd have known I was going to be there, I worked a lot harder. Put it that way.
well,
Probably
hindsight's
stayed on.
2020, but I
Yeah.
think, in my opinion, too, some of these guys are in too good a shape. Maybe that's why they do get hurt occasionally because
Yeah,
they got no fat on them. They're just like
look at
nothing,
you,
and they're
look
playing
at your
around. But
top-notch players. Look at your Byron Buxton or something on the Twins. You can't
oh
play
yeah,
10
yeah,
games without getting hurt. You know,
Exactly.
they're so wound up that they can't function. I think a lot of hockey players get that way too, unfortunately. But
That's a good point. That's a good point. So if you had a young athlete come up to you, Earl, and, we'll stick with hockey, but it could be sports in general, and he asked you, Mr. Anderson, what advice would you give me as a young athlete? I want to play hockey. I want to be a baseball player. What type of advice would you give someone if they came in as a young athlete, just in general? I
well,
always
I
like to
guess
get the
my
feedback.
I guess my general advice: if you want to do something, you better go all in. I mean, you don't go be a baseball player and a football player and a soccer player and then try to play hockey. I guess it's gotten to the point where if you're going to do something, you almost have to just go balls to the wall on what you're doing. And I guess
Yep,
I would say to just get your mind where you want to be and go for it.
true. So that led me. I'm gonna kind of spin off of that, and then we'll kind of wind down and finish up here. But I do want to spend being in a small town that we grew up in, Roseau or Warroad or wherever, anybody place up
Right?
north there. You play multiple sports. I mean, you don't see it as much as you used to now. Back in the day.
Very little.
Is there a point there? I like to have that when I was scouting. Doing my junior scout and that. I always like to see if a kid played more than one sport because I think it helps a well-rounded athlete. But there's got to be a point, like you said, if you're gonna go, you got to go all in.
Well, I think
And
yeah, I think the sport. I think they all. I'm a big believer in playing everything you can because, I mean, what percentage of people go on? I mean, you look
oh,
at youth hockey now, and everybody wants to be a gopher. Everybody wants to be a Sioux. And if you look at the numbers, you look at the percentages. You'd know them. I don't know them, but I mean, you'd know them way better than I do. I mean, one
yep.
in whatever gets a chance to play Division I college hockey.
I think
Not
on a bigger
everybody.
picture, when you look at the NHL, and like I say, this has been a few months. I heard it on the NHL Network, and they said it. I think over the course of the NHL's career, when they opened up the NHL, when it started, and that's a lot of years, they said there's been like 7,000 players to play in the NHL since the NHL started.
Since it
I mean, that's
started.
like that's a lot of years, and there's only been 7,000. So looking at yourself in the mirror and say you're one of those 7,000, Earl. That's a small
Yeah,
percentage. Just to
yeah.
say in one game you played 100, 109 or 100 games. That's a
109, I
pretty
think,
good
or something. Yeah, yeah.
That's a pretty
No,
good
I'm pretty
accomplishment. So
pretty happy with that. I never expected it to happen, and just like I said, I wish it would have been longer and whatever. But it was a once in a lifetime experience. I guess I'll never forget it.
and you have some experiences and stories to tell that we probably can't talk about on air here. That
A lot of stories.
but
Yeah,
I'm sure you do back in the '70s era, especially with the big bad Bruins. So
yeah.
was Derek Sanders? He was gone in the league then, wasn't he? Was he still playing in the league? Or just
Sanderson?
he was?
No, he was
Yeah, he was.
just about. He went out about the time I came in actually,
Okay,
because he was
because
he
he
was
was
with the
quite
he was with the Bruins. He
wild
might
and
have been with
wildering.
the Bruins even the year I played in Europe. I'm not too sure his last year, but he was.
Okay.
And then he went and played somewhere else. I think a little bit too. I don't remember exactly, but I never got to
Yeah,
play
I
with him.
just curious. I'm sure you would have had some crazy stories about him too, but you got enough,
Oh,
I'm sure, playing with those names I told you there, brought
yeah,
up there, just go.
yeah,
And being able to say that Grapes was my coach, Hockey Night in Canada, Grapes, that guy was my coach, and anybody
yeah.
see videos of him and think, I played for that guy. I said, you did? Well, you did.
A
So,
lot of people ask me, what was he like? Yeah, well, he was something.
well, he didn't like Finns, that's for sure. He didn't like Swedes. He didn't like the Europeans back.
He didn't like anybody that wasn't Canadian, really. I mean, when it got right down to it, he didn't even like Americans that well. But Americans started coming in, much to his dismay, I'm sure. But you look at there wasn't very many Americans when I played in the league. A number I would have no idea how many, but there wasn't very many. No,
No, I mean, it went from the original six to adding those,
yeah,
expansion teams, and even then, there's not that many Americans.
no,
So,
no. And they expanded after I played too. One more time. So it was.
uh, well, it's been an absolute slicer. I mean, we could talk about all sorts of stuff. I remember playing fast pitch back when I was in high school with those guys, and you were playing, and I think
Oh yeah,
just being able to, growing up in Roseau and looking up to guys like you, and I'm pretty proud to say I grew up there, and I still call Roseau home, even though I don't live there anymore. But who
right.
knows, you might see me back up that way.
Well, we
But
miss you. It's good to see you. Yeah,
I'm glad I was able to do this
both.
with you. I really appreciate it, and maybe you can track down Blaine for me, like you talked about. I like to get that goalie union. I want to keep that going since he's
Yeah,
went over to the evil side over there.
I'll
which
tell him.
from Rose.
I'll tell him you want to talk to him, and I'll give him your number. In fact, I can give you his number. You can talk to him. He probably, he's pretty quiet, but he's quite a character when you get to know him. Well, you know him.
Yeah, I'm sure he's got some good stories. He's Comstock. Them Comstocks there.
They can tell stories.
Yeah, I know. Joey in particular, he's a character. But
Oh yeah.
but anyway, no, I want to thank you again for doing this. I'll put this up on the Facebook. I'll render this tonight, and then I'll put it up tonight. So I'm sure there'll be some people that want to, have some things to say about your conversation with me, and I really appreciate it. And if there's anybody besides Blaine, if you have anybody you think I should talk to, I mean, I'm just trying to bring out, shed some light on some of the people up north that we, grew up watching and played against or played with or grew up watching. To
Well,
get them,
thanks for having me. It's kind of fun. You know
it's
more
hard to
about my
believe it.
career than I did, I think. Yeah.
Well, I try to do my due diligence, but
Yeah.
it's hard to, time flies, right? Time flies. Or you
Oh
look back when
boy,
you played 50, pushing 50 years ago, and
50 years ago.
kids coming up, not youth in the area up there may not know who the hell was it. Well, now you know.
That's what I
This guy's
talked to
pretty
Mike
damn good.
Lumbum today. He said, half the kids up there probably don't even know you played hockey.
Well,
I said, well, that could be.
hopefully they will.
Yeah.
That's why I like to do this, to shed some light on it and let people know the past, because that's where tradition, the culture starts from there. So
Well, it was fun
again,
talking to you.
I appreciate it, Earl. Thank you so much. You have a great evening, and I'll look for this on the site. And
All
thanks
right.
again. You have a great night.
Thanks. Yeah.
Bye.
Yep. Take care, bud. Yeah, bye.